Super Idol 的笑容都没你的。
How are we? Schloogle McDougal here. We're going to do a 9.2 Mage hot take. It's not really a guide. It's just me talking about it. Just a disclaimer. I got 3K a couple of weeks ago playing all the specs. Most of them were done with 2-piece. Most of them were done in pugs. So, I mean, I'm not your best resources. Plenty of better mages out there. So I do urge you go and have a look. But we'll go through and have a look at all the specs and the builds. So let's do that. First one is the one you see on screen. This is Frost Mage playing Disciplinary Command. If you liked Mage in Season 2, you're going to like Mage in Season 3. It's exactly the same build and playstyle, only that you have a pet, and that you're proccing Disciplinary Command. The way it works is casting Frost, Fire, or Arcane spells within 10 seconds. Gives you critical strike damage. So really easy to do as Frost is that you throw a Fireball, and then you hit Icy Veins. And Fireball will give you a Fire spell. Icy Veins is Frost, and then obviously drops down a Rune of Power. So those are your 3 spells, and then you just go ham. The idea behind the pet is that you're using the pet Nova to use your 4 set, which is your Comet Storm, your 2 set. So you call down a Comet Storm and you want to shatter those things, right? The way that you do that is with your normal Nova, you shatter it, and then your pet's done, and you just alternate the 2, and you're just shattering, getting huge damage, and you're resetting Icy Veins. And that's it. So if you like Season 2, then you're going to like Season 1. So the way it works is you would run in, you'd pop your Trinket, you would Fire Blast, I'm playing, and then you would obviously do all your things. We want to shatter that. There we go. And then you would, I'm playing Night Fae, then you would hit Night Fae, right? And then that's the rotation. Just cycle that rotation, keeping your Blizzard down. Obviously sending your procs when you've got your procs, all that sort of stuff. We've got a Comet Storm coming up in 3 seconds, so we're going to pet. There we go. We pet freeze it or pet shatter it, right? And that's it. So we've got Icy Veins back, all that sort of stuff. You've got Disciplinary Command as backup. Let's just hit it to proc it. So we just hit Icy Veins, right? And that's it. That's the entire rotation over and over and over again. So if you remember in Season 2, you were running Freezing Winds. It's very similar to Freezing Winds. You're not getting as many Fingers of Frost procs, but with the nerf to your CDR on Frozen Orb, this legendary just doesn't have as much throughput anymore. So, or Icy Veins reduction for that matter. So you're running DC and you're running the pet. So that's one build. You don't have to run the pet if you don't want to. You might be able to swap out. You might be able to run Lonely Winter, for example, and run Double Nova if that's more your playstyle. But the concept's the same, right? That's how you play that spec. It's good damage. It's really good in AoE. It's decent single target. It's not the greatest. But again, if you like Season 2, you'll like Season 3. My hot take on it, pretty boring. Reasonable damage. Very, very simple spec. And when you're competing against other specs in the space, like Warlock, for example, 2-button does way more damage. Why not just bring a Warlock? And then Survival Hunter obviously does tons of damage. Windwalker, Fury Warriors, that sort of stuff. So I mean, it's a good spec. It's competitive. Is it meta? I don't know. It's still got Decurse. It's still got Double Nova. Still got Last. Still has really, really solid survivability. So it's still good. I would definitely, consider playing it. I won't be playing it as much just because I'm not the biggest Frost fanboy. So let's look at the other spec, which is Necro. Alright, so the next spec is Necro. This is my personal favorite of the 2 Frost specs that I'll be talking about today. It's a little bit different in the playstyle. It's still very simple. You run the legendary Slickice or Frostburn while Icy Veins is active. Each Frostbolt you cast reduces the cast time of Frostbolt by 2%, increases its damage by 2%, stacking up 10 times. So the idea is that you hit Frostbolt, you hit Deathborn, and then you hit Icy Veins, and you just cast Frostbolt. AoE, single target, doesn't really matter. You're throwing orbs out there, putting blizzards down, that sort of stuff as well, especially on trash. I'll show you here in a second. But basically, you're getting all the damage out of this Frostborn build. So you're running Lonely Winter for, you're playing into this Legendary and then into Deathborn, which isn't coming up because of my macro. Deathborn gives you just 15% increased damage. You're getting increased damage on your Frostbolt here. You're getting Rune of Power damage on Frostbolt. You're getting more Frostbolt damage from Lonely Winter. Then you're getting Splitting Ice and Chain Reactions, obviously just for your chain, feeds into the Deathborn mechanic. So the idea is super simple. You run up to a pack, you hit Deathborn, and then you try to get your stacks up all the way, right? So 10 stacks with your Frostborn Legendary, Frostburn or Slickice, whatever you want to call it. So trinkets, whatever you got, Frostborn, and now you're casting. Put all your you got to put all your AoE down, then you're just hard casting, right? So you can see down there's my stacks. Hard casting. So I don't know, we're doing 46k, right? And that's it. It's the entire rotation. You're just casting Frostbolts forever. It's fun. So we're fully ramped at 10 stacks. You can see it here or up there, right? And so you're just keeping down. You're keeping your blizzards down. You're sending your frozen orbs whenever you get it, and you're just cycling through your cooldowns, and that's it. You're just hard casting. Just a reminder, when you hit Icy Veins, so I refreshed Icy's there, so I got to get my legendary stacked up again, right? So I'm at 6. This is it down here, right? So just keep that in mind. So depending on how the pack goes, maybe you want to pop Icy Veins earlier to better manage that, or later, or hold on to it, whatever it may be. You need to figure that out in your own personal play. But that's it. So you hit Deathborn, you hit your Legendary, and you cast Frostbolts forever. So much damage in Deathborn. Sort of drops off a lot, like now when you don't have Deathborn. But it's fun. It's super decent on AoE, especially on sustained AoE. It's decent. You're not going to keep up with your Warlocks, your Monks, your Survival. But you probably smash them on single target. This build single target, so like high Tyrant keys, it's going to be really good in. Low count fortified keys like Plaguefall and TOP. This build's going to be really good. It's equally as boring as the other one I mentioned. When I say boring, it sounds really negative. It's just simple, right? Very simple rotation. You're casting Frostbolt. You're trying to keep your legendary buff up, and Deathborn with CDR makes it really fun. And Deathborn is a fun ability. So shifting power is kind of mindless, right? Deathborn's really fun. And you notice I probably don't even have, in the later video, the first video I did, I probably didn't even have Frost Conduits in, right? So, and then you're obviously running Ice Bite, Icy Propulsion, and then Gift of the Lich, which is pure single target. So really fun, good consistent cleave, good single target. My preferred of the Frost specs. It's fun. I don't mind it. It's a decent spec. Let's go have a look at the other specs. Alright, so the next one's Fire. There's 2 specs similar to Frost, or two builds rather. The first one we're going to look at is Disciplinary Command. So it's the same legendary as the DC spec we looked at on Frost. So if you want to experiment, here's a good opportunity. Again, it's really simple. You're looking to proc your legendary using a Frostfire Arcane spell, increasing your critical damage. So this is very good for fire, just because if your critical damage, your combustion is all crits. So you proc the legendary, and then you go through and do your combustion. That's it. It's very, very simple rotation. The build itself, you'd be running, always be running Kindling, always Flame Patch. These two are Mythic mandatory, and then Searing Touch, of course. I mean, it's rare that you would run anything outside of this build. Maybe Ring of Frost for Plaguefall. You need to control ads, that sort of stuff. But the idea is that you would proc your Frost. So for myself, or a lot of the time, you'd be running to targets. We're targeting this guy or whatever. You'd be running forward, and then you would, sort of do your Nova. You can Frostbolt as well. Frostbolt works. So you proc your Frost here, and then you use your Trinket, and then you hard cast Flame Strike, and then we can bust into it, right? And that's it. So doing big damn. So you notice the damage on fire is a lot higher than the other specs, like up front, but it drops off really fast, right? So if you're considering like what, say, Frost would do, it's gonna hold that for a very long time. And then you just go through and you're literally fireball casting until you can get a reset through kindling on your combustion, and you basically just do the entire process again and again and again and again, right? It's fun. It's a lot of damage, especially like if you're able to get really large packs. Fire scale, so this is a 4 target pack, you know, in a mythic class, if you can get 10, 15, even 20, fire's gonna delete the pack, right? So that's one build. So that's a DC build. The other build, which it uses SKB, is a little bit harder to play around. Has less AOE. Let's just get out of combat here. So DC is the other build. Let me put my badge back on. So DC, Disciplinary Command, is after you cast, after consuming 8 hot streaks, your next Pyroblast, or non-instant Pyroblast, or Flame Strike, it doesn't say that on the tooltip, but Flame Strike definitely works, grants combustion for 6 seconds. So this is a very different playstyle, a far more fun playstyle, but you got to micromanage it way more. And losing your SKB procs is like a huge damage loss over the dungeon. So, I mean, it's exactly the same though, right? You don't have to worry about proccing your legendary, but you would use trinkets. You're going to see a little macro pop up, and then, you know, you can go into more combustion. So you would trinket, hard cast Flame Strike, and then do your combustion rotation, right? So we're doing that, and then shifting. So you can see I'm building up my stacks. It's a little bit better on single target. So we've got 7 stacks, so we want to get another. There's another one. So we've got our SKB, put our rune down, we're hard casting to get our proc, and then we're procced again, right? And then we're just basically going through that entire thing, and that's the entire rotation. So you're micromanaging this little buff. It's really good on single target, it's really good on AoE, but some pulls it's going to drop off and you're going to hate your life, and other pulls or other dungeons or situations it's going to be up all the time and you'll be doing decent. I think this is my favorite of the fire specs. It's just a little bit more fun. You've always got combustion, so in between your big combustion you might have 2, sometimes 3 little mini busts. It just gives you more to think about, more to do. It's a little bit more fun. Fire as a whole, as a spec in general, is decent. It's not as good as Frost, I don't think. At least community perception is that it's not as good as Frost. It's definitely more fun to play. A little bit more, way more nuance in fire. You know, you really got to think about what you're doing, optimize those combustions, and if you're able to optimize them and do really good pulls, or tanks does really good pulls to optimize your damage too, you can do very, very good damage. It's a fun spec overall. So let's look at the next one, which is Arcane. Alright, Arcane Mage, my personal favorite at the moment for Mythic Plus. It's a lot of fun. It's a very hard hitting spec. It's similar to Fire. It's got a lot of, you know, big bursts and then not so much damage in between. So it's got these really high peaks and kind of low troughs, whereas Frost is very flat in its damage profile. Fire and Arcane are very up and down. But the ups in Arcane are some of the best in the game. And the lows, they're not that low. So let's go ahead and talk about it. One build that you run, it's on screen, all these talents. The only talent change you might make is to run Slipstream if you like to, you know, if you like that talent more. I run Shimmer because the other 2 specs run Shimmer, so that's why I run that. Legendaries is you run Arcane Harmony, which basically just increases the damage of your barrage, stacking up 18 times by 8%. So 8 18s is what, like 144 or something? So let's go ahead and do that. It's really easy to activate. 4 set, if you want to look at the 4 set, it just gives you more damage until you touch the Magi, and gives you a longer touch, Magi touch. So, I mean, guides and rotations, so rotation guides and all that sort of stuff I might do on another video, but this is just a quick take on how Arcane plays and how it might look in Mythic Plus. So to get your legendary activated, you need to cast Arcane Missiles. So we've got 4 stacks, right? And then get a clear cast. Oops, that wasn't meant to happen. So don't do that. You get your charges up, right? So we're building all our, this is our legendary and our gloves, obviously. We're charging that up, and we want to get 18 stacks, right? So we've got 18 stacks, and then this is when you do your big damage ramp. And the way that this might look in a Mythic Plus, say we're in a Halls of Atonement, you need really big prio damage. Arcane's extremely good at this inside of their damage ramp, or damage burst rather, whatever you want to call it. So imagine this is a shard in Halls of Atonement. You would pop your trinket, so in my case Ruby. You would Kyrian Spark, Touch on a Magi, Arcane Power, and then you cast 4 spells. This is 3, this is 4, and then you send your barrage, and then you basically just pump this target full. We're at 40k, and it goes up to 70k, right? And that's on 4 targets. This is uncapped, by the way. Barrage is 5 targets, but the touch damage is uncapped, right? And that's how the entire rotation feels. You're basically getting these charges, right? This is like a conserve phase, and then you're just throwing out these barrages at 4 stacks, right? Charging it up. I mean, in a Mythic Plus environment, you wouldn't be doing so many Arcane Missiles. You would just be lining up your Arcane Missiles so that when your touch comes off, you would have 19, right? And the AoE, sorry, 18, right? The AoE in this scenario is, you know, you can do 2 different types of burns. Similar to fire, you can do like a full AoE combustion, or you can do a full single target combustion. Both cleave. Both are, you know, one's better at single target and the other one's better at AoE. It's the same for Arcane. One's got more prio damage, one's got more AoE damage, but the actual damage itself is it's still prio, right? So how that would look is you would rune, slightly different build. We'll go over this in another video. Kyrian Spark, touch, and you would go 1, 2 Arcane Explosions, barrage, orb, barrage, and then you would just fill in whatever damage into that touch, right? And then it falls down from the sky, 40k. And you cycle it back and forth, just getting your arcane charges, throwing them down range, getting your stacks back up, you know, and then basically just doing these really big burns, and then you're in a conserve phase. So if this were like, I don't know, sort of 5+ targets, you'd probably just be blasting, right? And then sending your stacks and that sort of stuff. And just making sure that you have 18 stacks of your legendary for your next burn. So let's see if we can't get a really big crit here to give you an idea of just how hard this spec can hit. So we Ruby, get some crit, touch, arcane power, 1 blast, 2 blasts, 3 blasts, 4, and we send. We didn't crit, but it's still hitting for 80k, right? It's still decent. And then touch would come down, and you're somewhere around that 60k. These barrages can, I mean, you're seeing that this the normal hits are hitting for 80k. I've seen them go for as high as 190, and obviously crits being big damn. This spec is a lot of fun. It has all the mage utility, decurse, lust, immunities. It's very much underrepresented, so people don't understand how it works. I think it's better than Friar, not as good as Frost, but on some specs, some dungeons, better than both the specs, especially Frost in some things like TOP. It's the best spec, in my opinion, by a country mile, but I mean, Frost is still Frost, and people like the slows and that sort of stuff. But that's the mage take. I mean, play whatever you want. I like to play the more bursty specs, Fire and Arcane, because I personally think they're more fun. But yeah, I mean, you play whatever you want, have fun with it. And cheers, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Adios.